Hey, folks, and welcome to 24/7 DCT Podcast. I'm Brian Wall, your host with over 2 decades of experience across 4 countries in the areas of mental health and addiction, with hopes of promoting awareness for our listeners, bridging the gap for those needing support, and offering treatment guidance throughout for ththose that choose to be in our tribe. You can follow us on all major social media platforms by searching 24/7 DCT and online at 247dct.org to gain access to evidence-based treatment resources and support. This week's episode has got another effort on our behalf to more closely track our tribe and bring awareness to issues like mental health, addiction, and general wellness, and everything in between. Let's go ahead and get started with yet another opportunity to meet a member of the 24/7 DCT family. With that said, Dr. Renee Floyd is a native to coastal North Carolina and U.S. Army veteran and proud mom of one. Three, if you include the cat and dog. She's been leading others in the healing process for 10 years and specializes in couples therapy, addictions, substance misuse, and OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, with 5 years of experience delivering teletherapy services. She has graduate and doctoral degrees in social work and healthcare administration and is passionate about advocacy, diversity, and client-centered care. When she's not journeying with others and has time to herself, Dr. Floyd enjoys fishing and painting. She's currently leading our clinical programming in the state of Alabama. Let's bring her in. And there she is. Thanks for your service and welcome to the show, Dr. Floyd. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Brian. Great to see you, virtually at least.
Yeah, we had some trouble connecting. My apologies for all the connectivity issues. I'm not sure if it's on my end or your end, but it's the world we live in. So thanks for being patient.
Absolutely. And we figured it out like a team.
Yeah, man, you got it. DCT, here we go. Hey, so let's jump in. You've got quite a bit of experience with all that is telehealth. For those that aren't familiar with it, tell us some of the pros and cons for using this as an option for support.
Sure. Well, I definitely say in the years that I've been doing this, the pros outweigh the cons with virtual telehealth support. But in the grand scheme of things, as a mental health practitioner like yourself, I can definitely say that a downside to virtual telehealth is obviously we're missing sort of that in-person component where there can be a lot more rapport building with being in someone's shared space. And some clients who may have more pervasive diagnoses typically need that a little bit more than other clients that may be, let's say, higher functioning, so to speak. And also, I think age can definitely play a role in it when concerning, doing therapy with children. But in all respects, whether it's spouse, caretaker, family member, I would say for the most part, virtual therapy can have a place for a lot of different clients, with different demographics, age, diagnoses, things of that nature. So I would say that's the biggest drawback. You're person to person virtually, but you're not in person.
Yeah, it does make it difficult for us as clinicians to kind of read body language. That's a big piece of what we do, and we get to see from shoulder up. So the
Absolutely.
tapping of the foot, the tapping of the fingers, that sort of thing those are messages to us as we lead clients. So that's one part that's difficult for me. I wish we got a full body shot sometimes, but also I understand confidentiality and comfort at home and all that. So I like the fact that, if it brings people to the camera, it brings people to the room. And without
Absolutely.
telehealth, I think, thank God that it came from the pandemic. And without telehealth at all, there'd probably be a number of folks that wouldn't be getting the support they need. So I like that piece and willing to be flexible with the part that I can't always see. So I'm
Absolutely.
flexible with that because I got them in the room, and that's the start of doing the work we do. So
No,
very cool.
you're very right.
Yeah. And so you're a doctor, but a different kind of doctor. And so I know a lot of folks in the field see doctor and they just assume everybody can prescribe medication. And so that's something I wanted to hit on as well. And you brought that up. I thought it was a really great point. Something I kind of forget just being in the field, and those questions pop up. I just kind of explain them, but great for our listeners to hear. What's the difference in doctors in our field? And tell me whether or not 24/7 DCT is able to prescribe medications for our clients.
Sure. So I will try to be as succinct as possible. So
Yes.
The traditional, let's say, MD or DO, those are your medical practitioners that people often encounter in hospitals. They may have ample training in behavioral health and can prescribe medication medication in the psychotropic field, let's call
Right.
it, so to speak. But when it comes to mental and behavioral health, there's actually a lot of different disciplines that people can attain PhDs or different types of applied doctorates. PhD is a little bit more research and academic focused. Applied doctorates more so, it's an extension of often your clinical expertise.
Yeah.
But for the most part, with a couple of exceptions, depending on what state you live in, most practitioners at the doctoral level do not prescribe medications. And at 24/7 DCT, we actually don't participate, at least currently, in medication management for our clients. So
Okay.
myself, my doctorate is in healthcare science and organizational leadership. So kind of the framework for learning how to operate, run, and direct a healthcare setting or a mental health clinic. But I don't prescribe medication. And
Yeah.
it's something I've always been open to in the treatment with my clients and sort of working on a multidisciplinary team with their other providers in their life. But it's not something I ever personally had an interest in. So I didn't go down that route.
Yeah.
But primarily when it comes to doctors that prescribe meds who work with clients with mental health diagnoses, those are typically psychiatrists.
Gotcha. And so I actually was started my PsyD at one point and went straight into my graduate degree from undergraduate. And after dropping out and getting myself all mixed up in a bunch of drugs and screwing up all kinds of stuff for myself, I finally got my my life somewhat straight enough to get back to school and finish my undergraduate, and was about to did my graduate degree and was going to go into my PsyD. And my wife told me that her and I, she's unfortunately passed away since then to cancer, but when we were married and I was about to venture that path, she told me that there would be a probability that her and I wouldn't be together if I did that, because it was so much working full time and doing the graduate degree and everything. So I agreed to bail out and went the route that I went, and don't regret it at all, but certainly respect all the work that you do. And so you're an expert in really just leading teams as it relates to providing services for folks in organizations.
Yes, that is correct. That was pretty much the focal point of my degree. But let me just say, and for our listeners, I thank you just so much for your transparency.
Yeah.
I often hear from clients who want to know, what is my background and experience with addiction or mental health? And
Yeah.
in some respects, self-disclosure can really help their treatment process. So thank you for sharing that with me as your colleague, and thank you for sharing that with our listeners.
Absolutely. I'm not real big on overprotecting disclosure. I've always been super transparent and open. I do think there's a time for it and a place for it, and you got to know your client, you got to know their struggles. And so I try to track folks pretty closely, and knowing when I can slide some of those personal experiences in there in hopes that it's a benefit and a support to them. But generally speaking, I think it serves a lot of purpose in helping to normalize some of the stuff that folks go through, because I tell clients all the time, man, I meet with folks, and I'll have any given day, I'll have 3 or 4 clients say the same thing that they're struggling with. And I swear it's energies in the air, something with the universe going on that
Right.
day. And it's so comforting to hear that, hey man, we're all in this together. We're all going through the same thing on some level or another. And sometimes we feel alone. It's like, man, I'm having such a hard day. And it's like, I've met 4 other people that are struggling with the same thing you're struggling with today. So
Right.
sometimes that helps to put things in perspective, and gives us the strength we need to address what we need to address. So, um,
Absolutely.
so more about medication. I'm wondering your thoughts on what the pros and cons are as you see them. Not being a medical doctor, but from your experience in the field, what are some of the pros and cons of medication in the counseling process, you think?
I would definitely say that one unfortunate and very tenacious issue is sometimes overuse, not in terms of necessarily by the client, but just over prescribing. And this
Hmm.
is not to say that this is the totality of all doctoral level practitioners, like psychiatrists that prescribe medications. But, if my area of genius, so to speak,
Hmm.
is medication management, I may not necessarily have the tools and insight and really see the client in a different perspective as maybe their therapist does. So that's why I'm very big on collaborating with a prescribing practitioner if they're involved in a client's care. In the years that I've been doing this, I've seen typically one of three things. Either
Mhm.
some clients just benefit from solely medication management, and maybe either they don't feel a benefit of going to therapy or it hasn't worked for them for whatever reason. Some clients are the polar opposite, where for personal, cultural reasons, they may just not want to explore medication management and they rely more heavily on therapy. And I
Mhm.
have many clients who do a mixture of both. I think the best bottom line for a person's overall well-being and functionality is to do what works best for them.
Yeah.
So that may be just medication management, that may be just therapy, or a mixture of the two. My professional philosophy is that if medication management enters the picture, behavioral health care should definitely at least be explored so we can
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
see, how are you feeling on this new med? Do we need to talk to your doctor about lowering your dosage, going up? There's a lot that goes into medication management that I think mental health care marries very well with it.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Makes good sense. I agree completely. I'm on the same ship as you in that it should be explored as a complementary piece of what we do in therapy on both
Yeah,
sides. And it's I oftentimes find the most benefit when folks are using the medication and engaging in therapy. And I think that oftentimes the medication piece opens them up to a lot of what's offered in therapy, and at the same
definitely.
time, along the train that you're riding here, you get to a point that the medication stabilizes, it's working really well. Don't feel like you need to go to therapy every week, maybe every other week, once a month, maybe even less than that. But you've gotten to a place where you're maintaining, and that's really the
Very
goal. So
true.
that would be a good thing, right?
And therein the difference can lie. With progress, sure, therapy can be short term, solution focused. You can change the duration. But, having had to work with clients many times who stop taking their meds because they feel better is something that,
Yep.
again, I think therapy needs to be in the picture.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think it's a necessary piece if nothing else, but for tracking and to keep
Right.
those lines of communication open. Otherwise, you're on an island and that's not good. And that's when that stuff you've experienced, I've experienced, folks, hey, I felt better. I stopped taking my meds. Like, no,
Right.
it's not when you want to stop taking your meds, right? Or,
Exactly.
it's like when the doc you have an antibiotic for strep throat. I got my daughter's got strep throat right now, and it's like, they say take it for 5 days, take it for 5 days. You got to let the medicine run its course so that it doesn't come
Absolutely.
back. You don't have any relapse of that sickness. And I think a lot of what we deal with in the counseling field is no different.
Absolutely.
So as it relates to counseling, we're on that topic of counseling and sessions. I'm wondering if you can explain a bit of your or share a bit of your thoughts on what a client can expect from that first counseling session, and how does it progress? How does it build from that point?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I would definitely say to clients, perhaps coming on board with 24/7 DCT, that if you have an amazing practitioner like Brian or myself, no, just kidding. But,
Might as
you know,
well.
the first session, I think, it's supposed to set the tone for how your treatment regimen is going to be. So I believe that rapport building is something that's definitely going to be a focal point, at least in the beginning of the session. Your therapist is really going to want to ensure that they're doing their part to make you feel comfortable and coming into this new space with a professional stranger that you're going to
Mm,
share some things with that may not be so easy to talk about. So
yeah.
I also think that you can expect for there to be a guideline for parameters or expectations. Some providers have ground rules about what respect looks like in the room with them, any boundaries that you have. Because remember, while this is a collaborative process, we really want to put you in the driver's seat of your therapy
Yes.
regimen. So, if the first session is not the day you want to deep dive into some heavy topics, your provider's okay with that. Boundaries are
Hmm.
okay. We're going to cater this to what works for you while therapeutically pushing you slightly outside of your comfort zone towards growth and change. So, some providers have their own style, and
Yeah.
rapport's big. You may
Yeah.
not necessarily click in the end with your practitioner, which is totally okay. I usually tell people, give it 2 or 3 sessions, see how you feel, how you like talking to this counselor, and kind of going from there.
Right.
Me personally, I am big on authenticity. I like being myself. That's what I bring to the table. So, some people think I'm funny. I don't. But, I usually start with an icebreaker like, so client, do you think pineapple belongs on pizza? Something out of left field just to kind of
Right.
lighten the tension. And like you said earlier, when there's a time and a place, and sometimes it happens in the first session, I may self disclose my own background with mental health or addiction to truly just say, I've been in your shoes and we can get to a better space than where you are today.
Yeah. I love that. Man, rapport is so huge, and you got to know your client. And I love that. I've always thought that the smartest doctors I've ever met are the ones that don't act like doctors and are the goofy ones, right? And you fall in that
Right.
category for sure, and that's a compliment. You probably are one of the bigger brains in the room, and I love that you're on our team and going to take good care of clients. But I couldn't agree more. It's just knowing your client, building that rapport, letting them drive, and
Exactly.
maybe hinting to them, hey, this might be a time you want to hit the gas a little bit. I'm wondering why you're hesitant to do that.
There
What's
you
going
go.
on, right? And you talk a little more about that, because there may be another issue in the room that needs to be discussed. So um as it relates to counseling, what are your thoughts on how young is too young, and what's the parent's role in a situation like telehealth?
Ooh, that is a good question, Brian.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, I started out my career in adolescent therapy, and this was long before telehealth was popular and available. Obviously, different age groups of children and adolescents, there's those typical developmental milestones. But
Mm,
I also have always tried to honor that one child's maturity level at a certain age may be different from another. But ultimately, I guess I would say the what I call the fickle clinical age range is somewhere around 7 to 10, where some children in 7 to 10 do well with telehealth, especially with a caretaker or a parent being heavily involved in the process. I don't think I've ever seen telehealth therapy be successful for clients under the age of 7. There's a lot of attention span
mm,
differences, developmental things. Play therapy tools are much more applicable when you're in person with a young kiddo.
yeah.
So ultimately, I would say try not to go younger than 7 if it's fully virtual. And the older that a child gets, the better they can stay engaged. And also clinically as a provider, you've got to also know how to sort of modify your language, your modalities to sort of be more age appropriate for where they are. But
Right.
what you said about the parent is key. Whether the child is 17, whether the child is 7, the support system has to be involved in that process, because there's only so much I can do meeting with this child, let's say once a week or what have you. They have to be getting those supplemental tools and resources and suggestions that we bring to the table in session when they're off camera with their family. And a lot of working with the parent goes into that. So one thing I've never done, because I'm a parent as well,
Hmm.
I don't, at least intentionally, I don't step on a parent's toes in terms of their parenting approaches, their perspective on something. I simply just challenge them sometimes to reframe their thought process, their approach. And I just say, just try it this way, see what happens. Did this make your child's mood better? Were they better able to listen, engage
Yeah.
with their siblings, and some of the goals that we have for you guys as a family unit? So the parent's role in adolescent virtual therapy is immensely important. In fact, I think it can fail if a parent is not engaged to a certain extent.
Yeah. Bang on. I think we were cut from the same cloth. You're the doctoral version of Brian, I think. I couldn't agree more. My daughter is 13, my oldest, and she's in counseling as well. We think that counseling, probably because of me, I think counseling is just as important as
Yeah,
changing your oil in your car every 6,000 miles or 3,000, whatever you choose to do. And so it's a good maintenance thing, and she loves it. She really enjoys having a sounding board every week she can toss some things against and see what sticks and what doesn't. And
absolutely.
I love that she has that. And it's knowing your client. Again, we keep coming back to this, but it's there's other resources, right? So if telehealth doesn't work with whatever age or whatever issue, there's other options. And either way, I think 24/7 DCT can play a role in trying to figure that out for an individual or family. So
Right.
this is really part of what the podcast is about: meeting the team, understanding what our vision is, what we're about, and we're here to help. We're here to support. reach out. Let us help you figure this whole thing out. You know, we want ultimately for you to feel better. We want you to get the help you deserve. So
Absolutely.
want to bring awareness to that. So with that said, now that you're a part of the team and heading up Alabama, I'm wondering for Dr. Floyd, what is one legacy or impact that you hope to leave on 24/7 as a member of the team?
Oh, wow. Save the best question for last.
Yeah,
Legacy. Gosh. I would say the biggest thing would be that 24/7 DCT, myself, you, our other practitioners and staff members, we pride ourselves on client-centered care.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, this is not an assembly line to get people in these virtual sessions. We support your growth. We want to cater your treatment plan to what works for you. We don't do anything what we call cookie cutter. What works for one client may not work for someone else. And you know, you can see it reflected in our staff, but we very much honor and really validate diversity and inclusion because a variety of people come to us for services. And if we don't honor what's important to them with their identity or, you know, any other aspects of who they are, all of that can have a negative effect on their treatment process or their
hmm,
desire to engage. So I love that 24/7 DCT strongly supports client-centered care. And
yeah.
that's why I definitely came on board. So if there's any legacy that I can leave, that it's about providing client-centered care.
I love that, man. You're in the right spot. I love these guys. The leadership. I'm not just saying that. I really do think they're cool. They're a good bunch. They work well together. They're not clinical minds, and the cool thing about that is they admit that, but they're really good at making this whole platform work. And it's a work in progress. They're super open to feedback, receptive to that. We love it. We welcome it. And I love that they're not about the fluff. If it ain't working, they fix it, right? And so they're
Right.
letting the clinical minds lead the calls here and letting them know, hey, is this working? Is this what you need? Do you need more? What resources can we tap into to make sure folks are taken care of? Um, just love that they're that bunch. You know, they're not these money hungry kind of guys. They really want to help people and they want to do it the right way. They want to do it most efficiently, and they're tapping into all the minds in the room to make sure that happens. So um,
Absolutely.
I love that. I look forward to working with you, Dr. Floyd, and appreciate you joining me.
Thank you, Brian. This was an amazing experience, and I hope to do this again with you soon in the future.
Yeah, I promise I'll bug you. If you're
Awesome.
in,
Thank you
if
so
you're
much.
interested, you bet. If you're interested in engaging with therapists like Dr. Floyd, you can find more information online at 247dct.org. So don't hesitate to reach out if you believe we can be a benefit to you on your journey. That brings us to Real Talk with Brian, and this week's encouragement is brought to you by Bruce Langan, who said, "Human beings are like tea bags. You don't know your own strength until you get into hot water." Now, ain't that the truth?
Absolutely.
Thankfully, we got time to plan for those hot water moments, and that includes developing reliable support system. And I truly believe 24/7 DCT and our clinical team could play a role in that system for anybody that chooses to include us on their journey. So reach out and let us be a support, folks. You can also follow my weekly trilogy series on LinkedIn at hashtag Be Real with Brian to gain insight in the areas of mental health, addiction, and general wellness. I appreciate everyone that joined us today. Be sure to check us out on all major social media platforms by searching 24/7 DCT and online at 247dct.org for more support. We look forward to spending time with you next week as we welcome yet another guest who's committed to getting you feeling better.
We are here for you at 24/7 DCT.
You got it.